So, welcome to 2025's first Thunder Laser Tech Support webinar.
Yay! Happy New Year. Anybody get
Oh,
anything good?
I, well, I'm
No.
here, so she got plenty.
Anybody else prepping for snow tomorrow?
We've had snow all week.
Yeah. What the Southeast is getting it tomorrow.
I made the mistake of going to Kroger this afternoon. It was great.
I did a online order yesterday and they delivered it today for free. So about 8
Well,
o'clock this morning.
yeah, I didn't really need anything. I just,
Oop.
it was more like, let's figure out what we're having for dinner tonight.
So is that the crazy one?
What?
Yes,
That one.
that's the double
That one?
spawn.
Yeah, that's like my cow one.
Like, oh,
Yeah, that's like my cow, her cow. I call it the cow cat.
So, while Lois is showing the kitten, we've got a couple names in here that I haven't seen before, several that I have seen. So, welcome. We might as well get this show on the road. I think today is supposed to be the talking about the Nova Plus
Yeah.
introduction and comparison. So let me go ahead and see if I can figure this one out. And there we go. Now, if I can figure out how to make it bigger, it'll be great.
Mm.
How's that? Or is it still tiny?
Still
Yeah, it looks fine. It's not like a size 2 font.
So we're going to talk about the Nova Plus, the new line coming out, or it's already out. Um, so we'll get into it. Just like the original Nova, it's built on the same platform. It's just got some added features for improvement. Uh, so what's changed? I guess the big thing is what's changed on it. A little bit of appearance, the air intake front, some of the performance issues, the autofocus head lens assembly. It's now have a built-in camera, the air pressure detector gauge, and the machine and tube wattage. So what's the difference in appearance? Well, if you see over here on the front, this is the original Nova, and then we have a different front on for the air intake. I know, Chris, you've got this front on one of yours, don't you?
Yeah. So I've got the Vegas machine from a year and a half ago and it came with that front. Um, Stylish looking and they claim better airflow versus the louvered vent look.
Have you seen any difference in the performance? Is it added to the airflow?
Uh, Not noticeably. I mean, I have done testing where I tape it off when I'm doing some acrylic work and everything, but I haven't measured it. Plus it depends on how well I open up my garage door to actually let the air balance.
True. If you're sealed off, it probably doesn't help much. On the backside of the machine, it pretty much looks the same, except for now that we're running RF tubes in them, where the chiller hooks up, the chiller power, and the tubes is now pretty much gone away. They sealed that up, and you still have the air for the air assist is built in. So it gives it a little bit cleaner of a look.
Yeah, and less setup too, right? Like if anybody here has a bolt, that sucker is pretty easy to set up with that RF tube, and this will basically be the same, except for you still got to plug in your air pump or external air. Um, but it makes life easier. And the fan, you got to do the fan too, but no chiller.
Which, yeah, I mean, that's one less thing to worry about.
Hmm.
So
Especially this week.
yeah, especially here's your optimized air intake. Yeah, to me it looks about the same. It's a little bit cleaner of a look.
Sounds like a sound. If you ever looked at like audio signals or whatever,
Hmm.
or like a sound.
With the wavelengths. Now let's get into performance. So you have the RF metal tube, 2000 DPI resolution, and looking at what a 10,000 hour lifespan for the tube.
Yeah, for like the gas consumption and all that.
The acceleration, it's gone from 1G to 2.5 with the acceleration up to 25,000 millimeters a second. For quicker movements, is that new stepper motor or new hybrid servos?
Yeah, I believe it's the same ones. It's just they've unleashed it a little bit. New head design. Uh, on mine it's the same gantry and stuff, but uh, that acceleration is going to get you time savings. Um, at 1G at 1,000 millimeters per second, you got quite a bit of extend space, which one cuts down your bed size, and two takes out your time, right? So if you're engraving one item at 1,000, you could be spending half your time on extend space. If it's a narrow item, that 2.5G will just reduce that time for that. So plus, the speed increase, I believe, yeah, 1,200 millimeters per second. If you're going to be going that fast, you kind of want to be able to accelerate faster to get there.
So with the new acceleration and the new speeds, the extended space. So when you're running that fast, you're not losing 2.5 inches on each side of the engrave. So it should help speed it up quite a bit, I think. So the new head design. Here's the new. We've got the original head uh, that everybody should be familiar with in the original autofocus sensors. Now it's all built into the same head.
Yep.
So it makes life, well, I know you've used it, Chris. I haven't. I'm still iffy on autofocus, but that's a personal preference. But this looks like it should work fairly well.
Yeah. So I've been using that head since the APA, or not the APA, the ISA show from Vegas a year and a half ago, whatever, maybe a little bit longer. I love it compared to the cross the bed because I can autofocus right where my material is, right where I plan to engrave. The other cool thing is each head is swappable into the little tube area, and the distance or length or whatever doesn't change. So I can use autofocus with all four of my different focal lengths. And the head also has a removable section, so if we want to get more distance for like the 4-inch head when we're engraving on like trays and stuff, or if we're trying to focus down in the material. And then the nominal focus for all four heads is 6 millimeters, so that makes it a lot easier to remember. Now in this picture, looks like a prototype. That little part on the front, I believe, is a camera that they're working on.
You're talking about this part right here where
Yeah,
the wire comes down, the potential of a camera there.
yeah. So it's not. I don't think that's on the existing machines or the Nova Pluses that are going out. This is again, that's their prototype picture. But that's not the autofocus. The autofocus is down actually in the tip, and it's
Right
spring
here.
loaded. Yep. And then you can still change out 2 millimeter and I want to say 6 millimeter, maybe 3 and 6 openings for when you're cutting versus when you're engraving.
For those that do that or prefer that, yeah, that's a great idea. I know you were talking about the heads, and here we go with the head. You see the original, the 2-inch lens, the Beam Buddy HR, and then the 4-inch. Now the new heads will be color coded.
Yeah, so you should be like red, blue, green, or black. So
Yep.
easy to identify too. Um, when you're going to use them. We get customers that are confused with the 2-inch head and the 4-inch head. Now the Beam Buddy is a darker blue and not as hard or to differentiate, but the 2 and the 4-inch head, people will mix those up, and the color coding will just help. From a visual standpoint, you can quickly look in there and say, oh, that's not the one I expected. But the little cylinders or whatever are interchangeable in between the tip and the actual receiver. So it's kind of nice.
When you look at this, the one drawback is, as of right now, if you're used to running an aftermarket, there's no more aftermarket. So I assume it would, in theory, work, but it defeats the purpose of autofocus. It defeats everything that's built into this head. So, pretty much no more aftermarket except for the
Well,
lens itself, not
yeah, and
the
I,
lens.
depending on the final diameter, there might be something aftermarket available. You're not forced to use on autofocus, so you probably could remove it and just not use it, right? And then use your other lens tubes um, for that. In my opinion, now that we're offering the 1.5 inch and you also go up to 4, you got the full gamut of lens sizes. So it covers most bases for most people, but it is a thicker tube. I think the current Nova series is like
21 millimeters.
22. Yeah, is that
21,
21?
21,
Okay.
21 millimeters is what the current
Yeah,
tube size is.
yeah. So it's a little bit thicker. I've got one here. Let me caliper it real quick. 27 millimeters.
Oh, that's quite a bit
So
difference.
yeah, because they had to create the different sections of the little cylinders, there's threads, small threads and big threads, and so in order to have the threads on the other section of the barrels or the cylinders, they needed more material to cut those threads into. So yeah, it got quite a bit
So
wider.
since you've got that with that two different thread patterns, does that make it easier to not put everything in upside down?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's got the different sizes, and then the actual cone part goes onto the thicker thread, and so you've got your orientation. You'll have the nozzle cone at the bottom and be able to insert it. Plus, there's a like a O-ring that is it's movable, but it sits in like a little groove, and that's what you raise it up to like basically fully insert it and stop it. And then if you need more clearance, you can lower that O-ring and push the cylinder up higher into the lens receiver to get more clearance. Like I was doing that this week when I was cutting out some thicker plywood. I wanted to autofocus it, but I wanted it to sit above the crossover bar in the back part so that it could hang out the machine and everything. So I just raised everything up to get a little more clearance.
So now we come. Now every machine comes with a built-in camera.
Yeah, I think they're starting out with a 5 megapixel. Don't quote me on that. Would like to see 12 on the bigger machines, but I believe that's what they've got going on there. Just mounted. They've been using it on, I want to say some of the early Bolt Pros where you had 2 overhead cameras and then you had almost one mounted in that spot that could be uh, with the lid open, whereas the other 2 were with the lid closed. And
And
that'll just
everything.
integrate into Lightburn.
Yeah, I'm going to say everything would be integrated into Lightburn.
Yep, and it'll come that from away from the factory, so there's less work for the customer to do when we sell an accessory or anything. It'll just be there.
Now this one's new that they're adding. I know they did it with the Bolt Pros. They added the air pressure detector.
Yep.
The digital readout, of course, if for us that are running it, helps with repeatability when you want to really dial that air in and get it very specific. But this also is coming with the, I guess I don't want to say it's a system that you created, but will shut things off if the air pressure gets too low.
Yeah, and then Thunder had that on the late model Odin as well. The Odin 32 had that, the shutdown. Um, it just wires to the controller and does that. They wire direct. I've got a couple options where you can just make it easy and break a door sensor. But yeah, this new the sensors, just like on the Bolt and some of the late model Odins, um, you get your pressure ranges. You can set the low, I think factory is like zero point 0.3 of a psi. You can set that to whatever you want to. But if people haven't seen that in action, it's pretty sweet. If you've got external air and uh, either your breaker trips or you forget to turn on the compressor, or you've got your high air assist set so high that you're draining your tank and the external compressor can't keep up, this can help shut down, well, not shut down, it stops the job, stops the lasering, and you protect your lens, you protect the machine from a fire, from not having air assist, and you also protect the quality of your cut, because if you try to cut without air assist through these thicker materials, you start getting that soot at the top, right? So people
Hmm.
have had that problem where, oh, I was got, this is a 45-minute cut job, and 30 minutes into it, it started looking horrible, and my compressor was running the whole time. Well, you drain that 120 psi in the tank down to nothing, so this sensor can help protect that, and the repeatability of it's nice to where you can say, okay, I'm going to go back to 13 psi when I'm cutting this. I'm going to go down to zero point 0.2 psi when I'm engraving that. Just consistency versus listening for airflow and feeling.
Integrated air cooling, also on the back of the machine. More intake fans. I assume these pipe directly into where the tube light is, and is just in addition to the fan sitting on top of the RF tube.
Yep.
Still got the integrated speed fan speed control board, just like the bolts do. Um, so we're progressing along, I guess. Now, uh, almost last but not least, what these things are what the models are gonna be. So we've got the for the Nova Plus, we have a 24 with a 60-watt RF tube, and then we're still keeping the same. I don't want to say same lineage, but we have the 24, the 35, the 51, and the 63. Um, the 35 will fluctuate. You can have a 60-watt or an 80-watt RF tube, unless something's changed in the last
Yeah, and
short
I mean
amount of time.
all that could still change, right, depending on what they want to release. Um, and if there's demand, like we go like, what, I'd like to have that 120-watt tube or something. Uh, because the beauty of these RF tubes is the physical space isn't like a glass tube that keeps getting longer and longer and longer, and that's why the Nova 63 and 51 and the 35 with an extension can fit on a 130-watt tube. But you start getting very wide where RF tubes don't get that large a scale, so they might be able to do some cool things.
It would be nice to squeeze in a massive source with and a tiny little body or frame.
Yeah. Now there was that one guy. He had that machine. It was a dirt cheap price in my opinion. It was a Nova 35 converted to, I want to say it was at 120 watt, 150 watt RF. Had a big bump out on the back and a 220-volt chiller. He only wanted like 10K, but it was used, and again 220.
That's the one that
But
had the different head placed on it too, with the head camera and.
yeah, I
Or
think
I'm
that,
thinking
yeah,
of a different
yeah.
one. Yeah,
No, he might have had, yeah,
he had it tricked out. That's for sure. So
yeah, but it sat for a while. But it looked pretty sweet. But he, like I said, he had a massive tube back there. Just it had to get a little bit deeper. From the dimensions we have, the crates did go a little bit deeper, so maybe that's what they've got going on is a slightly bigger tube box.
so yeah,
Go back.
again, we've got the multiple sizes and the multiple tubes that are available in these. I know on Thunder Laser, and it's I think just Thunder Laser YouTube page. There's the video of the plus cutting and some of their documentation on the pluses that are coming out, the way the autofocus works and what the head looks like. So, anybody have any questions? See, that's what I like. No questions.
I got a question for you.
What's up?
So is the air assist, is that coming straight down like Novas typically do, or is it coming at an angle like the Bolt series does?
Straight down.
Straight down, okay.
Yep.
Right now, only the bolts go. The Bolt series has the angled air. This new one should help. What with the direct airflow or with the direct air assist, it should help blow particles out of the way and give it a decent cut.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
and I've got that little add-on head. I just need to do more with it on the bolt that makes it straight on down.
Oh, I hadn't seen that one yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it basically converts it to, I don't know what you could call it, inline airflow versus that side injection.
Any other questions about the pluses?
Surprised,
Taking that as a no.
I'm surprised all the Mac heads haven't jumped on the naming. If they see one and then a plus, like a bolt.
The next one's going to be a Mega, right?
No, that's not Magnum.
Well, that
So
concludes the formal portion of this. So we'll open the floor up to any other questions or topics that people want to talk about.
well, not to dominate it, but so we have that Nova 35, and it's doing good. But we've been getting like a majority of our business has been pretty much all hats and patches, which I'm not complaining, but it's kind of shocked me. So my business partner and I, we've been talking about, if we're going to add something, a bolt is well known for, like a Bolt Plus is well known for really pulling out those details in leatherette patches for hats and whatnot. And now this looks like it's pretty much ballpark same speed, very much the same resolution. Um, what would you say? I mean, really and honestly, it's same price, pretty much same ballpark of price between a Bolt Plus and the 24. Which I'm just curious your guys' opinions between the two.
Knowing you and what you're doing, Cody, the 24 plus, I think you don't really need a big bed size. You already have the 35, so it's a little bit
Right.
bigger. So if you're just running your leatherettes and acrylics and stuff like that, yeah, I don't see any issues.
Yeah.
The biggest nod for me would be how you answer this question. What width does your material come in?
I mean, it's pretty thin.
No, width.
Oh, the width. I'm sorry. Yeah. The width, it's 12 by 24, so it's not going to fit on the Bolt Plus.
Yep.
Most of the time they have to shave off 4 inches of it.
Yep.
I mean, it'll fit in the bed. You just may have to move it if you want to utilize the rest of that 4 inches or maximize the sheet.
Yep. And so that reason alone is why I went from a Nova 35 to a 51, so that I can fit 40-inch wide materials. So the Bolt, to me, if you're looking at something, the Nova Plus with that 24-inch bed or working area with the bed's going to be a little oversized is going to be the ticket compared to the Bolt.
Okay.
And I think the 60-watt RF tube in it should do just fine for what you're doing.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
You'll still have frequency control if you want to dial that down. You got the speed, you've got acceleration. Now the Bolt Plus will have the new screen, or has the new screen, whereas the Nova Plus is still using the same screen that's on the current Novas.
Yeah, it's one I'm used to. So.
Yep.
Okay.
There's a crowd of people that don't like the beeping of the new screen, but I love the new screen. A piece of painter's tape in a couple of places really help attenuate that. But the new screen does have a lot of cool features.
So Belinda's got a question here, and you're definitely going to get some opinions on this one. Looking at the 51-130, do we feel the 51 Plus is comparable in cutting power? So up to an 80 watt RF tube versus a 130 watt glass tube. Chris, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, this would go back to my preference. I would rather have the 80 watt RF to get rid of the chiller, and the low end is a lot better. So on a 130 watt tube, because it is so long, you've got to maintain or excite it enough to keep a stable beam. So uh, depending on the age of your tube usage or whatever, you may have to run, let's say 12% out to get a stable beam, else you'll get banding as you engrave, or you'll get weirds on stuff on your scores because that tube is trying to stay stable, but it's what, 6 foot long or something. So if you try to do leatherette engraving or engraving on sensitive materials, sometimes those longer tubes are troublesome. That's why you hear it oftentimes people want to engrave photos and delicate stuff. They start worrying about getting those thicker tubes or those longer tubes because of the turn down rate. Not saying you can't do it. Typically, you can combat it with a little bit of speed and some other settings. It takes more effort. Chris Locascio can do quite a bit with his 130 watt tube. But the flexibility of that 80 watt, it's going to be nice. And then when you think about beam spot size, so a 130 watt glass tube is going to have about a nominal 6 millimeter beam spot before it gets focused, and a 60, 80, 30 watt, whatever those are, tubes is typically around 2.5 millimeter. So less than half the diameter, which is far less area. So all that power is concentrated and you have to burn less material to actually complete the cut. If you're trying to, cut with a 1/4 inch bit versus an 1/8 inch bit, you can see how much less material you have to remove, but you still get through from top to bottom and finish the cut, right, on your end mills. But so that gives you a benefit there where you're burning less material, making less dust, and your turn down rate for engraving. So to me, the 80 watt RF would be preferred over the 130 watt glass. Now the tricky part is the pluses. They sold out of everything I think they had coming, and so it's like July before they can get you another one. That's a long ways away.
And I look at I can't I can't think about it until I physically see it do what a 130 watt tube can do. When you talk about specific cutting capacity, if it'll cut through 1 inch cherry or 3/4 or 5/8 or whatever it may be, like the 130 watt does, then I'm all for it.
And that's what I want to do is to be able to at the next Ignite or whatever it's called, is run those tests on it, on those RF tubes, doing the same stuff that we do with our 130 watt, and see what happens.
And Cody, give us a few, and one of the two of us will check on the lead times, or you can send a message to there it is. It's in the chat.
Yeah, so from a business standpoint, the sales team would know the most about specific lead times, since that is, of course, their area. But from what I've heard, it's around July for many of the models, at least the Note 51. It might be sooner for the smaller models, but they would know the definite.
Any other questions out there? So we do not have the awkward silence. Jim, you look like you got a thought, and that's what scares me.
That's why I'm muted. Just behaving myself.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing what the pluses will do. I really want to see that RF tube, because I've yet to put my hands on an RF tube that has the air going directly through the nozzle instead of to the side. Even the epilogues, for years, that's the air assist that they've had. So I really look forward to seeing what these things can actually do. Any other topics of conversation today? Unfortunately, blunt, yes, it is a very hard decision to make. Um, you're used to the RF tubes and the bolts, so I think they're what for right now. You said, Chris, the pluses are going to come with the same controller as on the Novas, so your
Pretty much.
controller is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to on the Bolt. So
Well,
I think that's going to be what one of the about the only differences that you'll be able, you'll really see other than the sheer size. And I mean, you're putting an RF tube into a tank, so
so when people think about lead times, 5 months, that's a long time. You could be making money too in those 5 months on a different machine. Um, I really hope they ramp up some of this the RF production and get these things moving. But yeah, if you were thinking about expanding or starting a new business, you may want to consider a glass tube Nova for now, or one of the Bolt series, just to get that up and running and going, and building that, expansion out.
It's no different than the old lead times.
Uh, Talking about like the current Nova series, you probably
Yeah,
get
the
those
old
in three. Yeah, you
no,
probably get
I
those
think
in
he's
3 weeks.
talking about the original ones, like
our lead
when we
times when
first.
we first got ours.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's no different than back then.
yeah. It's fluctuated. During COVID, there was some time where the ports were backed up, or we almost had that one where they shut down. Um, 6 months is just a long time. 3 months is a long time.
Especially when most people are only used to waiting a month, maybe
Yeah,
sometimes even 2 weeks if they're already in the warehouse.
yeah,
Thunder did a really good job cutting those wait times compared to some of the other laser companies. And that was a huge selling point for a lot of people, was that they could get their machines really fast.
yep. Yeah, I don't think they were anticipating the demand for the Plus as high as it was. Just from a number standpoint, I'm surprised with what it sold. But yeah, they basically sold out the first batch in the month of December, just completely gone. So uh, now they just got to get more.
Welcome, Travis. Just in time, you
How's it
missed the
going?
slideshow.
Missed the slideshow. Was it good?
Of course. Now, today's topic is the Nova Pluses. You're interested in having a RF tube in one of the Novas and some of the changes and whatnot that were made.
Yeah, the RF tubes aren't strong enough for me yet.
What was the high end RF2? Was it 80 watt? Was that the highest in RF2 that was there?
On the list that was pulled from, yes, that's what it was showing, was an 80 watt. And yeah, I'm not sure what Canada's. All my information is based off here in the U.S., so I'm not sure what
Yeah, just
Canada is going to be.
how strong of a RF are you wanting?
Ideally, I'd love like a 400 watt.
Okay.
Good
Yeah.
Lord.
It's
At a
Travis.
minimum, I
It's
need
Travis.
150.
He's trying to shoot a laser beam to Jim.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
No, it's Travis. What do you expect?
Yeah, no, at a minimum, I would need
I
a
don't know.
150.
I got to laughing and thinking about putting 120. If there was a 120 watt in a little 24.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, because I'm getting ready. I need to start looking at swapping out the tube on my Nova 63, and I'd love to go to an RF, but if I do that, I'd need at least a 150 in it.
Okay. Yeah, it's just once you start getting up into those very large tubes with those very large DC power supplies, you're going to get away from the 120 side of things.
And I don't even think anyone makes a 150 RF.
There's one that's 200 that I've seen a 200 watt RF that I've seen the commercials for or the advertisements for, but I don't know.
A Radeon might.
It sounds like it's too new and something I don't want to put into a production unit.
And it probably cost you about 300,000 knowing the company.
Yeah.
So in correlation, let's say that an 80 watt RF tube, what does that correlate over to in a glass tube?
80 watts.
Well, yeah, watt to watt's the same, but it's just because of the smaller beam, you're able to cut better. You're just burning less material to get through the same thickness.
I'm trying to come up with questions that people would come up with, and I'm at a loss. I'm trying to help.
No, I appreciate that because, as we. Oh, that's Travis's wife.
Yeah, sorry, my big mic isn't. Hold on a
Yeah, so Radeon goes up to 250 watts on theirs. They got these ceramic core ones. So they're making them, but I bet those are some DC power hungry large cabling tubes.
Yeah, I don't have my good mic hooked up right now.
It's okay. We won't hold it against you, Travis.
Yeah, I switched computers and I thought I had everything plugged back in, but apparently I missed my microphone.
No, it was your son's fault. He plugged everything in.
Well, yeah, and then we had to pull my computer back out to install my extra hard drives, and it was working before we installed the other hard drive, so we probably just missed plugging something in.
Okay, Travis, why does it look like you have clouds on your ceiling?
They've always been there.
He's always had clouds on his ceiling. He has lightning that goes through his ceiling.
Yep, I have lightning that goes through my ceiling.
Nice.
You don't ask those questions.
And it's back from when I did videos out of here.
So yeah, Belinda, if there was a definite, an 80 watt equals 110 or 100 watt, that's I know there's some sort of correlation to it, but I don't know. For me, I guess believing is seeing.
Basically, the hugest difference. Good Lord, my English! I sound like I'm from
Spot
the
size,
South.
that dot size and the size of that beam, even before it hits the lens, is amazingly small.
That's what I was going to say. This beam signature is the biggest difference. Basically, to describe it to people, is the beam signature is much smaller between the RF and the glass. Correct.
Yes.
Jim, this program's kicking my butt.
I could tell when I talked to you earlier. So they give people, I'm trying to come up, they give people perspective for the beam signature. Let's say that you're running a glass tube on a CO2, and you've got a 4-inch down to a 1-inch or 1.5-inch lens. So let's say that you're starting off with a 4-inch lens on a CO2. What to get the beam signature? How am I going to word this? You guys know where I'm heading with this. To get a comparison between a glass tube and an RF tube and the beam signature, let's say that you've got a 4-inch tube.
I think what you're trying to get at is if I have a glass tube or if I have an RF tube with a 4-inch beam, it's about the size of a 1.5 on a glass tube. Does that sound about what you're trying to get to?
Yeah, I was trying to give a spot comparison for people on the difference in the beam signatures and the size when you guys are mentioning beam signatures to get people that don't either have one or don't understand the beam signature of understanding how much smaller it is. If they only have a glass tube right now is what I'm trying to say. It's like between if you're running a 4-inch tube and you're running how far down would you have to drop to get to a RF tube? And if he's running a 4-inch tube or 4-inch lens versus an 1.5-inch lens on a glass tube, would that basically equate to a 2-inch lens on a CO2 versus what size on a RF? Am I making any damn sense at all?
I understand where you're going. Your thoughts, Chris?
I'm trying to get Chris because he's there. He's just like, I think I got Chris confused.
I was just mad. So, uh, from an area standpoint, unfocused RF tube, roughly 2.5 millimeter diameter, that's 4.9 millimeters squared, whereas the glass is 6 millimeters unfocused, which is uh, uh, pi r squared, right? 3 times 3 times
You're the
3.14.
engineer. I don't do math.
Is that right? So now you're looking at like 28 millimeters. Is that right? Does that sound right? 2 pi r by d pi r squared.
Wah 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 wah.
I
I
was
was trying to
thinking
Yeah,
the
get
same
I was
thing.
trying to give people you know, just an
but
idea of just like if
I
you
guess
was running.
at the end of the day, 3 divided by 1.25, we don't really need to do all the math. The power density is like 2.4 times on RF, but unfocused, if wattage to wattage,
So it's
there's some,
twice.
yeah, just but the density of how it's spread across, if you took 60 watts on a glass tube, that was 6 millimeters versus 60 watts on a RF, that was 2.5 millimeters. You take 3 divided by 1.25, that's 2.4 times the power density. Now, there is some, when you do the pulse dots or whatever, there is a little bit of a gradient of where the power actually exists. But if you normalize everything, 2.4. So your density is higher, and then you're having to burn less material to complete the cut. So everything should point towards better cutting, and you get higher definition engraving, and you get the frequency adjustments that you can make.
Yeah, I don't know if I just confused everybody more or if I tried to
Yeah,
help with that. I was
yeah,
trying to come up with I knew the question was going to be asked at some point in time. I was trying to come up with a way to do a simple comparison.
Well, the
yep,
thing of it is, it's the frequency too. When you start altering the frequency to get your cuts right in the way it, lack of better words, it shapes the beams or make the beam do what it needs to do, you get some interesting results.
yeah. You can do some fun stuff
Especially
on
on
mill
the
graves.
the lower end of it. What 1 through 4 or under 10 kilohertz, you get some interesting looking. I don't want to call it a beam signature, but pretty much it's the way that the beam acts on it. And you can get some really goofy looking engraves
Mm-hmm.
if that's
Almost
what
like
you're wanting to do.
yeah, it's almost like you do like cross hatching or some like weird stucky, you know, pattern, whatever. It's weird.
Well, just basically give people a comparison that if they have a fiber and they're looking at frequencies on an RF tube, can you do similar weird shit with a similar weird stuff with a RF tube like you can on fiber by changing the frequencies on wood? Not saying you're going to get blues and greens and stuff on wood, but I meant just by playing with different shadings in the aspect of changing the frequencies, does it give you more of a very more of a control in doing shadings?
I mean, I haven't tried it, but I mean, it might be possible. We're just getting different patterns in how the eye sees the light.
Well, I also think the different patterns helps with, some of the more troublesome stuff, whether it's, removing the powder coat or probably the grain structure of certain woods. If you're looking at wood species, I still know the RF tube, well, at least the 30 watt didn't do well trying to cut, 3 mil ebony. But the UV does beautifully at it. So I'm wondering what, a higher RF tube may do to it.
So basically, could you solve the issues with oak and pine with having an RF tube when you're engraving? Or are you still going to have the same issues?
I don't know. We got decent looking results on the bolt on bourbon barrel lids.
Because I know how you always have those grain fluctuations in the sap versus the hard grain, and like pine and
Oh,
oaks, and
yeah.
that's what I'm meaning with having a frequency thing. Is there a way to?
Well, I mean, you're still going to be, the reason why you get those fluctuations, say on pine, you've got some parts that are, I guess, more dense or harder.
Yeah,
So in the
it's the
laser,
sap and the
yeah.
yeah.
So, the laser's outputting the same output. It's just that the material is varying. So again, if you're going back, even though you've changed frequency, if you're outputting the same output and the material still varies, you'll likely see that variation.
That's
That's
why I
where,
didn't.
Yeah,
That's
you
why I didn't know if it would have it, if you could screw with the frequencies enough that it would obliterate the harder woods versus the sap woods at more of an even pace than just running a standard CO2. Yeah, I know I'm going really weird into this, but I was trying to
Well,
tell
I
my.
can see it when you start talking about white oak and quarter sawn and dealing with the Rayflex and things of that nature, or black palms and some of the wood species that have the combination of softer and or more dense and less dense areas, sapwood. Like we already know that on cherry, the sapwood doesn't like to cut, but on walnut the sapwood cuts even better than the heartwood.
Yeah, and it engraves way faster than the hardwood.
Exactly. So I don't know. Without playing with it and running, a massive amount of tests, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I'd say if you're looking for more of an even surface, you're going to need a rotary tool, something
Oh
that's
yeah,
going to go to
CNC
a
would be
depth.
the best.
Yeah,
It's always going to be the best for that. I just was trying to come up with something.
yeah. Now I like it when I do lake signs and stuff, or cabin signs. When you get that pine variation, it just makes it look cool.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that would.
and then the area where you're not engraving is still basically flat, so it contrasts very well to it. But yeah, if I needed consistency, I'd have to go with a mill router.
Does a narrow beam take longer to work, or the wider beam would cover more area in each pass?
Good question. So yeah, you are running a narrow beam, so generally you are running higher LPI um, to do those passes. Easy technique there, defocus a little bit, just like people do to smooth out their engraves on wood. Uh, of course, you've got different lens options, like the 4-inch lens on that RF would probably be comparable to say the 2-inch on your current Novas, so that you can get that quicker engrave. Just like when I do a lake sign, a 4-inch lens, because this thing's 24 inches around, does me fine. I don't need to be engraving uh, quarter-inch tall text on a lake sign, because nobody's going to read it that close. It needs to be half-inch to 2-inch tall text. So the 4-inch does fine there. So same principle. That was a good question, Danny, by the way.
Absolutely.
That was another one I was trying to come up with. On the
Yeah.
engraving, I'm going, what else could have changed on the engraving? And Danny nailed it.
Yep.
Because that's
Well,
like engraving with a 1.5 lens versus a 4-inch lens. I mean, you're just got covering a bigger area.
and I personally think sometimes the tiny dot size, because of like the 1.5 lens or something really super tiny, you're just focusing it even more. It makes it more difficult to engrave. If you're trying to do and score some intricate detail, like say the full Army logo, or the Army seal, that's got so much detail in the plate armor and the snake and all of that, then yeah, go for it with that tiny little lens and tiny little spot size. But the majority of the time, if you're doing something huge, you're just creating more work for yourself, trying to remember I got to up my lines per inch or I got to defocus it. There's a lot of tricks out there to keep it from causing the issues that some people may complain about.
I've ran out of thoughts.
It's all good. I think we've done fairly well.
Besides, I just want to see what a 400-watt RF tube would do.
Yeah, you start talking some more high dollar optics at that point too.
I want to see what that would do to ebony.
I want to see what it'd do this side of it, like plate steel.
Are you going to do some gas assist?
Travis, yeah, he would do gas assist.
Travis would probably try just about anything.
He's preoccupied on this project.
Any other questions out there? I know we've got, A little bit of time left, and Cody, you good? You figured out what you want to buy next?
Yeah, just kind of decide on whether or not it's going to be a longer lead time or more needing right now. So, but no, it's good. Thank you.
Know us, always happy to help.
So in other news, anything out of Bamboo lately?
You mean the toppest secret of the decade,
Yeah,
supposedly. They
I had
actually,
to mute those Facebook groups for the month of December after the Black Friday sales. It was getting ridiculous.
yeah,
Like the
that's
bigger bed or something for the
that
X-Men
has to
carbon.
that has to be one of the biggest kept secrets I think I've seen in any industry, that they've actually able to keep that under wraps for as long as they have.
So did they announce something?
They got that what is it, Travis? The new bamboo. What's the lettering on it? H.
Oh, the H1, dude, that's like 2 years old.
No, but that's supposedly they've released pictures of it now. That it's supposedly the actual true leak now, and I don't know if it's
Yeah,
true or not.
it's the size of a K1.
Only that big?
Oh, speaking of that, how are you liking your Giga?
Here, Travis.
Oh, Chris, you got a Giga. You got a Giga too, right?
Yeah, so mine is down right now. Self-doing. I'm enclosing it,
Yes, I
and
can pick
I set it up to print 8 colors. So
You're good, don't
finishing
worry.
up that conversion. So it'll be like a Bamboo, but massive. So it's been down for like a month and a half,
Uh,
just tinkering with it.
I know Travis is altering his as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was having a conversation on top of yours, so
Well, I'm hoping Bamboo comes out with something. I'd like to replace the first one I got. Um,
you at 4,000 yet on your hours?
oh, dude, I'm probably like 8,000 on that
Oh
one.
Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably 6,000 on the other two.
Well, I'd say we were close enough to the hours that I can go ahead and cease the recording.
Yeah, you're good.